Welcome back, everybody, to Real Estate Junkies Coast to Coast. I'm your West Coast representative, Rusty Ham, on the East Coast. Rick, say hi.
Hey, everybody. I'm Rick Abbiati from the East Coast.
From the East Coast. Right now, you are on Rhode Island, right?
I am getting ready to do another In the Trenches boot camp.
Yeah, you're going to hang out with Chris and the gang in the Trenches boot camp. We have a link for that, so check that out. I'm going to be there. We'll talk about it at the end, but there's going to be one in April, and I'm going to be there with, hopefully it's going to be really good weather. April is good weather out there, isn't it?
It's better.
Better. As everyone knows, with this podcast, we talk about the three pillars, not necessarily in real estate, it's in business in general, but mindset, skill set, and systems. Today, we're going to talk about systems, specifically, Rick, on comps, right? So we have different ways we get comps because sellers out there, they think their house is the bee's knees, and part of our scripting, and we can talk about how we script it when they give us the price. But what, Rick, what are, after you go on an appointment, we have 7 steps you're taking, right? We have a first call, send out an email, second call, follow up, and then we have 4th step, which is the appointment. And then after the appointment, we come back and do our research, right? So this is 5th step in our 7 steps to a taken, and a taken is basically just getting a house under contract. What systems do you use to get comps?
Well, I used to use PropStream, a combination of things. PropStream, which I no longer use. RealEflow is what I've pivoted over to. And you can get all the comps, estimated value. And I will look at, if I kind of compare with Zillow, the sold properties in Zillow, not the on-market ones, because that doesn't tell you anything. And that's pretty much where I do my comps. And you?
Yeah, same. I still have PropStream. And let me ask you this. So I do PropStream. When I first started, when I didn't have any systems, I did the combination of Zillow, Redfin, Realtor, Trulia. And I basically just kind of added them all up and then divided by however many websites I did. And then I got an average, right? So that was, and I still kind of do that. Remember, and people might say, well, why don't you just use the MLS? Well, we're not realtors. We don't have access to the MLS. Where some people in the community they have access to that kind of information, but we don't. So we have to get a third party company, PropStream, RealEflow. So that's how I do it. And I mentioned that some of the sellers overinflate it because they think their house is the bee's knees. What do you look at specifically when you do comps?
Bed, bath, and square feet, preferably within less than a mile away, depending on where it is. If it's very rural, you can extend that out. We like to do it within really a half mile, and same beds and some beds, baths, and square footage. We don't look at necessarily condition. Yeah, it might be a little bit different if it's a handyman special, but that's generally what we look at, and it should be optimally within the last 90 days, but it can go out 6 months. But past that, it's not going to be any good.
Yeah, because the market changes all the time. So, and the reason I say that is like sellers think certain things in their house increases their value, right? Well, I put in new cabinets, I put in granite countertops, and there's a pool, and yeah, that might add some value, but it's not the all be all, right? You know, we like you said, we just do bed, baths, and square footage. Lot size might have something to do with it. You know, sometimes some acreage, like you said, it might be in a remote area and there's some acreage. But you know, we're typically just move-in ready. We don't necessarily care one way or the other if you got brand new countertops or not. We just want to make sure it's move-in ready and we're paying a fair price. What do you think? And I kind of mentioned it. What are the harder ones to comp out? What kind of houses?
Some of the rural properties can be very difficult to comp out, and some of the unusual properties. Another example is if you have a home that is, they're asking $2 million for, and all the homes around it are $400,000, $500,000 homes. You got a little bit of an issue comping that. So, you can always, and I think you do the same, is you can always talk to the seller about getting an appraisal if you can't get comps.
Yeah, so we're running that right now. We're actively trying to sell my mom's house. I met with a realtor on Saturday, and my mom's was an unusual property. It's an older one, but it was built in the '60s. So there is, you have a front yard, and most people have a fairly decent backyard, but hers is on a corner, like what's so her backyard darts out like a big V, and so her backyard is unusually larger than most people, and it also backs up to a street where you can have access from that street to her backyard, where no other house has access to that street. So the realtor's like, "That's huge. Like that's going to add value." And I'm like, "I didn't know that. I didn't know that. A street behind her house created value, right?" And then he's like, "This, it's a third of an acre backyard." He's like, there's people that are looking to buy houses and then add ADUs to them. What are your thoughts on houses that have ADUs, and does that increase the value of that house?
Well, um, yes, it, from what I've seen, it does increase the value of it. But you have to take a lot into consideration when you're looking at that. Because, I mean, if you're obviously, it's, well, first off, you want to make sure that it's um, a livable property. In other words, it wasn't just put in the backyard without building permits, because we've seen that where it wasn't. But, that's either an in law or a rental suite, which can add to the property value.
Yeah, I mean, would you consider that a multifamily then? Like you just have the main house and then technically you have a second house. Yeah, so the way we'd sell that to a tenant buyer, we haven't really gotten deep into tenant buyers, but we would say, okay, tenant buyer, we're going to sell you the main house. You won't have access to the ADU or the mother-in-law's house or whatever we want to call it until you get a loan. And once you get a loan and cash us out, then you can acquire that second home or that ADU. In the meantime, we can rent that out. So it does become profitable for us until the tenant buyer cashes this out. And what about, so we've run into mobile home houses that are on a lot, not necessarily a mobile home park, but someone's acreage. What are your thoughts on comping that out, and how would you do that?
Well, some of them modular homes are very nice homes.
Right.
So I mean, some of them are built as good, if not better, than some of the stick built ones, because basically they are stick built. It's just in a factory. So where if you have a mobile home, that's a different story. But
Right. Mobile home park is different. They don't own the land underneath, or actually lease the land underneath. We could do it, right? You buy it owner financing and sell it over financing. That would be technically the only way we'd probably be able to do it, right? Okay. All right. So let's pivot. Let's pivot to our game plan, and then this is going to incorporate three of the four. Well, no, it could include the lease purchase, executive lease purchase. This is to incorporate all four game plans, right? Again, all the four game plans is the lease purchase, which is the mortgage and the title remains in the seller's name. We simply take over their expenses. We stay in the middle. We find a tenant buyer, put them in the property until they cash the seller out. So that's the lease purchase. Subject to, similar to lease purchase, however, title is going to transfer to us. We're going to own the property and we're going to exit pretty much the same way, which is get a tenant buyer and then have them cash us out. Then you have the owner financing, which the seller is in first position. They are acting as the bank. We're simply going to give them a monthly payment for a period of time and then cash them out with a balloon. Usually that's a longer term, 4, 5, 6 years. Our exit strategy starts with tenant buyers. However, we could pivot to owner financing, or we can just sell it traditionally on the market later on, right? Then a sign out, we find a buyer, we assign that buyer back to the seller. In all these cases, there's a monthly payment, right, Rick? And what we're running into, right? So 2019, 2020, 2021, interest rates were what? 2.5, 3, 3.5.
Yep. Yep.
Right there. 2022, 2023, when we were talking to those sellers, when those sellers were looking to sell, those were good rates and they had really good monthly, and we call it payday two, right? So when we backtrack to our paydays, we have a payday one, which is our the down payment we get from the tenant buyer. Payday two is our monthly cash flow, which is what we charge the tenant buyer minus what we give the seller. So that's our cash flow, payday two. And then the payday three is a combination of principal pay down and the premium that we sell to the tenant buyer. So we're specifically talking payday two today, Rick. So back in 22, 23, we were speaking to sellers that had really good interest rates. What I noticed, and I think you noticed this too, which is last year and this year, we're speaking to sellers that have 6.5, 7.5,
Yep.
which comp wise. So let's get into the comps. Not only is there a price for a house comps, but there's also a rental or a monthly comp. So what we're running into is these 6.5, 7% interest rates, which means their monthly payments are fairly high, and they're actually higher than rental comps, correct?
Right. And in some cases, thousands of dollars more.
Yeah. So let's get into comps. How do you where do you get your rental comps?
Well, with me, RealEflow does in a lot of cases list the rent comps, kind of the range, but I'll also run that through. I'll do Zillow for that area for bed, bath, and square footage for single family homes, assuming it's a single family home or a condo. I got to do comparable properties, and it's not a hard and fast rule, but you can get an eye on the competition. In if let's say a 3 bedroom, 2 bath home that's similar to what you're dealing with, and it's been on the rental market for 4 months without moving, you're not going to get that rent for it.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you kind of play it by ear.
yeah, it's similar to comping a house, right? You have these sellers that think their houses are the bee's knees and they're going to sell it for, they think they can get, they think it's worth this when it's actually worth a lot lower, which sounds like we run into the same thing as far as rental comps is you have these people that are trying to rent it to, squeeze out as much cash flow as they can when in fact their rental rate or whatever you want to call it is too high, right? But what we're running into, right, is the sellers that we're talking to, their monthly payment is, on average $500 to $1,000, like you said, above market rent. So how do we? So if you're talking to an associate, how do we? There's two. I think off air we talked about two different ways. What are the two different ways that we could get this house under contract, even though there's either a negative payday two?
Well, one of the things to back up a little bit, Rentometer is another resource. It's RENTO meter, Rentometer. That's another place to get rent comps from. So the two ways you can do it, just off the top of my head, in what we've seen is one, the seller may be open to subsidizing, depending on how motivated they are. If they've got another mortgage and they're, let's say it's a vacant property and they've been paying, $3,500 a month and not having any income, well, they may be open to subsidizing 500 or $1,000. It's less painful to them. That's one way. What would you say is the other way?
Where if the negative cash flow is not that high, the five or that let's say it's 50, 100, maybe $200, then and we only recommend this if you have multiple deals and you have cash flow coming in from other deals that you're okay with maybe taking a negative cash flow if the deal looks holistically looks good, right? We always tell our associates look at it holistically and what does it look like and does it make sense holistically Because if it looks good, let's say you can get a pretty decent payday one, you're getting some principal pay down, a large, $500, $600, $700 in principal pay down, and you're able to sell it at a premium, then maybe taking a $100 or $200 hit each month would work, right? And then let me backtrack on the subsidize. I wanted to define that because some people might not know what that means when you talk about subsidize. It would be, let's say he says the $3,500 in examples is PITI. We come in with a tenant buyer at 3,200, right? Or maybe in 3,000. Let's just use even numbers. His PITI is 35. We get a tenant buyer for 33,000. What we're asking the seller to do now, he doesn't have a $33,500 payment each month. He just has a $500 payment a month, and then we're going to cash him out on or before 24 months. So you figure 24 months times 500. Are you okay with that? And again, you said it depends on their motivation and their because if they're not motivated, if they don't need to sell, then they probably won't do it, right? But some people need that 3,000 off their books, right? So they can do something else with their life, right?
Right. And you mentioned looking at the deal holistically. In fact, we just ran into this on the deal. The seller it was 7 point something percent, and I think his payment was 5,000 something. And of course, he wanted the world. And the rent comps were, I want to say, like 3,800. And looking at it, he may be open to subsidizing to some extent. But if you look at it, the payday one was a sizable down payment. It was like $60,000. If you put that aside as capital, you can make up some of that negative payday two. But at 7+%, your principal pay down is not going to be that great. So your payday three, I think it was probably maybe, I don't know, $13,000 payday three. It's just not going to be worth it to do that.
Yeah, because you're talking a 7.5% interest rate, which means you probably just got it last year. Now interest rates have dropped a little bit, but you probably just got it last year, which means, and if you don't know about mortgages, it's interest heavy in the early years. Probably the first 7 or 8 years, it's really interest heavy. So yeah, like you said, a 7% interest rate now is probably $200 maybe a month, and then in principal pay down. Which, I mean, it's better than a sharp stick in the eye, but still, it's we're looking at 500 plus as a good deal.
I'm going to go get a root canal.
Yeah, root canal. I heard root canals is a scam, but I had one when I was younger. Now I look back and I'm thinking that the dentist scammed me. Like, I didn't really, he just wanted to bill my insurance company. Yeah, so good stuff. Yeah, so we're gonna be looking at payday twos, and then a lot of times, Rick, if it is a negative payday two, and we're not interested in subsidizing or staying in the middle, we'll just assign the buyer to him, and now he has a steady buyer instead of a renter, and that buyer is going to take care of all the buyers, all the. So he might save some money in this situation because he doesn't have to deal with repair.
Mm-hmm.
Right, all those are going to be passed on to the buyers. Hey, say, hey, Mr. Seller, yes, you're subsidizing, let's say $300. However, you don't have the headaches of a landlord where you don't need to hire some contractor to fix a hole in the wall, or you don't need to do this or that. Which, in the end, it'll probably even out. Maybe, I don't know, $300 a month. I don't know if it would even out, but it is an incentive, sort of, right?
And if it's a lease purchase, he or she is going to get the advantage of the tax benefits.
Correct. Yeah. So both lease purchase and executive lease purchase or sign out, they get the benefits of being a rental, right? I mean, back in the day, those were really good write-offs. They're not necessarily the best write-offs anymore, but you still get the depreciation, and you get to write off any expenses that you make on the, any repairs that you make on the home, you can write those off. So good stuff. Let's transition. You said you're in the ITTB, but what I wanted to talk about, Rick, a little bit is our Wicked Smart sit downs and how valuable that is to our community. Sometimes we bring people on that are helpful to the community. I mean, I can think of last week, which was Derek Dombach. He's a coach, and he helps with scripts, talking to sellers and how to speak with them. We've had Peter Totten on. If you guys don't know Peter Totten, he's used to own and operate Snap Fitness. And now I think he's into, what is he in the
Acai bowls.
Acai bowls? Yeah, that's right.
And I mean, he's done phenomenal with the acai bowls.
Yeah, so he's real good at opening businesses and opening not multiple businesses, but opening multiple sites. Yeah. And then are there some others that you?
Oh, there's a wide range. There's always pretty much always somebody really good. Derek was phenomenal. I picked up quite a few things out of the last Wicked Smart sit down. So,
and it's not just creative financing, right? We bring people on that outside of our niche, which is good, right? We'll bring on some note investors. We'll bring on, the life insurance with Mark Willis. And then, so sometimes we bring on, a guy it's called the shred method. You use a HELOC to, get rid of your debt. His name is Adam Carroll. So we bring on, again, people that are outside of our niche, which is creative financing, and present them to our community so they get a wide range of, and we're not going to typically we don't bring on people that we don't use ourselves, correct?
right. I mean, there was one on private money not long ago, how to raise private money. So there's a lot of valuable resources on the Wicked Smart sit downs.
Yep. And then we're also, speaking of systems, we're not necessarily going away from My Plus Leads. My Plus Leads, again, for if you guys don't know what My Plus Leads is that's where that's our lead source. Expires, cancellation withdrawn, FSBOs for rent by owner. That's where we get most of our leads. I guess you call it a competition, but we bring in land voice, right? So we're expanding people's choices rather than just having My Plus Leads the whole time. So we're giving them a choice similar to RealEflow and PropStream. They're kind of the same what they do. So again, we bring on a lot of different people. So if you feel like this is a place you want to kind of kick the tires around and see if this is for you, we have links in the show notes where you could, get a free 15-minute strategy call with one of the coaches, and we can talk to you about joining the community and how awesome it is. You are in Rhode Island at the ITTB in the Trenches Boot Camp.
Yep.
Officially, it starts tomorrow, right?
Yep. Starts tomorrow, runs through Friday about noontime.
Yeah. So just again, what we do is first day is we make phone calls for the associates. They bring in leads. We make phone calls. The second day is a deal structure. A lot of those deal structures come out of those phone calls that you make the day before. The third day is strategy sessions, how to build your business. And it's good that you're there because your business is thriving. You built a pretty good business from the ground up, right?
Yep, and you'll be at the one in April.
I will be there in April. It's April, what did I say it was? 14, 15, and 16. So if you guys want to come see the West Coast representative on the East Coast, I'll be hanging out in Rhode Island. Maybe go to a couple bars,
I was going to say Rusty knows all the local bars.
the Oyster Bar or the Surf Club.
Surf Club, yeah.
Those are my two favorite. Yeah, so just again, there's a bunch of links in the show notes where there's different ways you can connect with us and see what we do. It is a thriving. We're gonna do well. There's a lot of people that have a lot of deals out there. Jessica's doing well. Jeff Cody's doing well.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity going on in the community right now.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with proof of concept, right? they don't, some don't see it right away, and so they get frustrated. We call them casualties, right? That they get frustrated because they haven't done a deal in 1 or 2 months. And it's like, guys, calm down. Just, and we've talked about our story, which, mine was a year, yours was 15 months. And it's like, but you gotta play the long game in this business, especially the creative financing business, because it's not wholesaling where it turns into a job, right? Because you tried wholesaling, that it felt like a job, right? You don't have a job. Your hours are flexible. Like my
No
hours,
job.
like, yeah, I mean, me too. I mean, I was able to go do something today and just pick up and go. And I didn't have to like call my boss and say, "Hey, can I have time off?" Or, even my wife. And just a little story about my wife. She teaches. She's a middle school teacher, PE, and I have all these things I want to do. I want, like, hey, I want to go here. I want to go here. I want to go here. And she's like, "Well, I'm running out of days. Like, you're only allowed a certain amount of days per year to take off, for, either personal or sick leave, right?" And I used to be that way. I used to, like, oh, I only have a certain amount of days. And that thinking is crazy, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I got up to uh, 20 something, 21 days, I think, which came out to like 3 weeks. And I would always be running up against, I only got X number of days left. Now I don't even think about how many days I got left.
Yeah, it just, hey, Chris, can I'm gonna take off and go golf on Friday. Yeah, hey, go have fun. You know, it's like, I love it. What I miss, and this, I'm gonna end on this. What I miss, Rick, is just going somewhere and hanging out with like coworkers and and having lunch with them and chatting about certain things, whether it's, their kids and their sports, or it's, politics or whatever. I do miss that. Like, I'm home all day, and it kind of sucks sometimes. It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
But flexibility and the freedom, I think, outweighs everything. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's like when you call some coworkers that you used to work with and
Yeah,
you want to see if they want to go to lunch and they say, "Oh, I got a bunch of meetings today." You
yeah.
got what?
What are
Oh,
those?
geez.
I mean, we have them, but
Yeah.
they're like half.
You know, it's a different life.
Yeah, I love it. I don't know if you guys want that type of life. Give us a call. All right. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate it, man. I'll
I
see you.
love
I won't see you tomorrow because you're going to be in the trenches, but I'll see you Thursday at the coaches call. See you.
That's great. Looking forward to it.
See you, everybody.
All
Take care.
right.